Hi, my name is Ashley Booth. I am an oceanographer by training and profession, but today I'm not going to be talking about the ocean at all. Today I'm going to be talking about another passion of mine, but not so far away from science. I mean, I've always been really curious. I've always been very just curious about the way the world works, how our minds work, how people interact with one another. So in 2007, my adventures and my curiosity led me to a city called Black Rock City in Nevada. Anyone know where this is? So this is the home of Burning Man. And not to play the stereotype, but when I was here, I had my first opportunity to try ecstasy for the first time. And you could think that this is just a big party, but that one single event changed something inside of me that was very profound. I was able to connect with people in a way that I hadn't been able to connect with them before. And this impact rippled through the whole rest of my life. And so I began to wonder, if society was so wrong about the effect that this substance would have on me, what else could it be wrong about? So I want to step back for just a second and tell you what my motivation is for giving this talk. So this experience and the other experiences that I've had over the last couple of years have really changed me in a lot of positive ways. And so my intention for this talk is to be able to share some of what I've learned, the impacts of the impacts it's made on my life, as well as tell you some about the science that I've researched, well, not me personally, but through this curiosity has made me uncover all these things about what's going on with science surrounding consciousness and perception. In the hope that you will take these things and take my story, maybe it'll inspire you to be brave and try your own experiences, explore, bring back your stories, and share so that it benefits the rest of us. So I'd like to start with this question, which is, why are we so afraid of altering our consciousness in certain ways and not others? So why alter consciousness at all? But even before we get to that question, altering consciousness kind of sounds a little hippy-dippy. And so consciousness is really just how we see the world. And when we alter it, we're seeing the world in some different way. And when we disrupt something, we start to notice it. Because otherwise, it just sort of fades into the pattern of everything else around us. So I kind of broke up these ways of why we might alter our consciousness into a couple of different broad categories, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means. So the health industry regularly alters your consciousness with painkillers, anesthesia, and a whole host of pharmaceuticals to alter emotions and cognitive functioning. So this is something that's not new to any of us. Also, through celebration, our society revolves around alcohol for celebration. It's at every part of our, it's almost at every event you go to. It's embedded in a lot of religions. It's just part of our everyday lives. And lastly, escape. A lot of people, just in the day-to-day facing of the challenges of their life, go to just a disruption of that rough pattern, and they use these different things for escape. So there's several different ways that you can alter your consciousness. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but I broke it into kind of a couple different categories. So you can alter your consciousness through concentration, so like hypnosis, or something that I recently found out about was hypnobirthing, where you can hypnotize yourself while you're giving birth so that you're not in the same amount of pain and you're totally relaxed. So when I learned about that, I was like, I gotta share this with everyone that I know that's gonna be having kids soon, because this sounds amazing. Like, why is this not more well known? So other ways are through some kind of chemical means, whether it be alcohol, pharmaceuticals, any kind of illicit drugs. You can also alter your consciousness with your own breath. Dougie and I are going to go do a holotropic breathing workshop in a couple weeks, and it's a researcher that developed this way of breathing in a particular way that's supposed to kind of give you like a psychedelic almost experience just by breathing. So we'll report back on that. And lastly, we mentioned earlier about sensory deprivation. So we got to try out the float boxes, which was pretty wild and really relaxing, as he was saying earlier. So the one that I'm actually going to be focusing on for the rest of my talk is actually the chemical means, because it's the thing that has been the most impact on my life. So which substances exactly I'm talking about? Because the word drug, a lot of things fall into that category when they actually fall in a huge spectrum. So the substances that I'm going to be talking about are the psychedelics, which are not chemically addictive, despite what you may have been told. They have been used for, many of them have been used for medicinal purposes for thousands of years amongst cultures all over the world. And then some of these chemicals actually are naturally found in plants, animals, and even in our own brains. So at this point, I'd like to do a little poll. So I'd like you all to look down into your lap and close your eyes. All right, everybody do it. It only works if we all do it together. Okay. So I'd like you to raise your hand if you've done marijuana before. All right, hands down. So I would think that's about 95% of the room, maybe a little bit more. Okay. Please raise your hand if you've done ecstasy or MDMA. All right, hands down. That was maybe half the room. All right, how about mushrooms? All right, hands down. Again, about half the room. All right, how about LSD or acid? All right, hands down. Maybe like 40%. All right, now we're getting into the more interesting ones. Ready? Okay, ayahuasca. Okay, hands down. So that was maybe 5% of the room. And for those of you that don't know, ayahuasca is a very strong, visionary drink from the Amazon that's used for medicinal and ceremonial purposes. Okay, next one is NN-DMT. All right, hands down. That was maybe less than 10 people. Okay, and then the final one, 5-MeO-DMT. All right, hands down, maybe about just less than 5 again. Okay, please open your eyes. So, congratulations, you're all criminals. But you're in good company. So, clearly a lot of you know what I'm talking about. For several decades now, we've had a really bad, we've had a ban on doing research on these substances, even though they've made a big impact in the medical community when they first started coming out. But in the 1970s, they were all banned and all research ceased. But there are several communities and foundations and research groups that are coming together. These are just a small few, to help researchers get funded and help lead them through this complicated funding and permitting process to be able to do research on these compounds. So I'm going to go through a couple of the different ways that just a few of these compounds have been used for medicinal uses. So I'm going to go over treatment for opiate addictions, PTSD, some cancer end-of-life treatments, and cluster headaches. So PTSD is crippling our veteran community. Right now, there's 22% of young vets commit suicide. So it's devastating, and we're really not finding a lot of ways to help them. But MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, has been funding and stimulating the research to use MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD, and have been finding amazing, amazing results. 83% of people that do the MDMA-assisted therapy after 2 sessions of this, 83% are cured for PTSD. Not they're in therapy for the rest of their lives, not on medication for the rest of their life, cured. So, I mean, it's amazing. And so the way that this works is that if you think about memory, or the way most people think about memory, is something happens and your memory takes it in, you write it down on a piece of paper, and you put it in a file folder. And then when you want to remember it, you come back, you pick up the piece of paper, you read it, and then you put it back. But the way it actually works is that when you come to take out and read the memory, you read it, then you rewrite it, and then you put it back in. So our memories are getting rewritten every single time that we call them back up. And so if you've had a traumatizing event that's happened in your life, it gets written with that emotional pain associated with the memory. And so when you remember it, the emotional pain comes back up. But the way that the MDMA-assisted therapy is that when you've taken MDMA and you're in therapy and you remember these awful things, but it tampers those traumatic emotions to come up, and you're in a much more peaceful and compassionate and open place. And so when you rewrite the memory, it doesn't have as much emotional trauma. And so they've found such amazing results for this, and it's really getting quite a bit of press recently, which is really exciting. So the next one is using ibogaine. Ayahuasca also has been used for this same purpose. Ibogaine is another visionary plant medicine from Africa, and it's found to be very effective in alleviating drug cravings from opiate addictions, and it's been able to get people off of heroin addictions, or at least like either they're using a lot less than they were before, or getting it off them for weeks to months, and then with more treatment, they've been able to get off of it with really good success. So that's really exciting as well. Psilocybin, which is the compound that's found in psychedelic mushrooms, has been used for end-of-life anxiety. So people that are terminally ill with cancer or any other kind of problem, they take the psilocybin and are able to kind of come to a place of peace about the end of their life. And actually, when they don't have as much stress from the anxiety of their own death, they actually live longer because they're less stressed. So it's beautiful to see that these things are helping across the board. And then lastly, cluster headaches, which I had never even heard of until I started looking into uses of these substances in the medical field. Cluster headaches are these completely debilitating. I mean, you can't even call them headaches because I watched some of the videos of these people experiencing these headaches, and they're just, they can't move. They're just like screaming, or like, it's heartbreaking to watch. And there's a very small portion of the population that it has these, and there's been very little medication that they've been able to find to help these people. But what somebody found was that you could actually, if you took a little bit of LSD or psilocybin, it stopped the headaches for months. And sometimes these people, like this guy was getting like 40 of these headaches a week. And after he took just 1 or 2 doses of LSD, his headache stopped for 17 months. And so it's amazing. I mean, the community that has these cluster headaches, this knowledge spread like wildfire, and so now they're kind of doing their own growing illegally, but, if you're going to be able to prevent from having these awful headaches, they're willing to take that risk. But what's really interesting is why now research has been going into, spreading this as an actual, prescription to more people, is that none of these compounds are, they're all off patent. And the thing is that, especially in this case, the psilocybin, it's so effective. You take 1 dose for, 17 months, and you don't need to take it again. So there's really not very much incentive for any kind of pharmaceutical companies to do research on these things, because what kind of money they're going to get out of it? So the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 is what put the ban off on most of these substances. And what was interesting is that Controlled Substance Act says that these compounds are very easy to become dependent on them or to misuse them, and then that there's no medical uses for them. But the thing is that once you've categorized them as Schedule I, which is the most illegal any substance can be, you can't do research on them. So you've created this catch-22 system where we say that there's no medical uses, and yet we're not going to be able to say one way or the other if they do have medical use, because no one's shown one way or the other. You're probably still asking because, the war on drugs rhetoric has been going on, and I was, in DARE program back in the day, and, how safe are these drugs, actually? So a group in United Kingdom did a meta-analysis study of for the safety of a lot of these different substances, and as well as many other more common ones, and then they made a parameter to measure the safety given physiological, physical, and then sort of social, and then they kind of combined it all into one sort of parameter so that they could compare across different things that might normally be apples and oranges. And so before I show you the graph of the most safe versus the least safe, can anyone tell me what the least safe substance or any kind of mind-altering is? Bingo. Okay, can anyone just, for the safest? All right, here we are. And if you can't see because it's very small. Okay, so alcohol, you're right, at the very top. Right underneath it, heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamines, cocaine, tobacco, cannabis kind of in the middle, and then way down at the bottom, psilocybin. I don't know, somebody up here said it. So, as a scientist, I can't look at these data and be like, what the heck is going on here? We've been told for so long that these things are so dangerous, and yet the things that we have access to every day are so much more harmful. And it just kind of pains me. Okay, so why are they so feared? And one of the reasons why, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the things about psychedelic substances is that they kind of let up whatever's kind of just under the surface in your psyche. And to a lot of people, that's a really scary proposition to let any of that up. But the thing is, and what I've experienced in myself and the people in the community that I'm around, is that when you actually let the top off, and you let that stuff bubble up, you can actually look at it and deal with it, and then you can actually move on and find some very profound healing in that. And so it's kind of like taking a trip, traveling, I mean, to like another country. So like, you could take a trip to, all expenses paid for resort trip to Cabo and, be very relaxed, which would be very soothing and restful and healing in certain ways. Or you could, take a trip to Africa and meet people on the complete opposite side of the globe and learn about what's important to them, connect with people in a way that you may not have been able to connect with other people, and go through tough experiences. You may get food poisoning, you may get, your wallet stolen and your passport stolen, or, but the thing is that you grow, and through those tough experiences, we grow. And so, not every, psychedelic trip that you experience is going to be easy, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that it's like a good challenge because it continues to grow us as people. And so what I'd like to call for is stop the silence, stop the rhetoric, and to actually have a rational conversation about these substances, their uses, and then what are the real concerns about using this in a bigger kind of way, a broader sort of way, because I don't see the problem as with the substances, but the problem is with the people that use them and abuse them because of the society that we've created around us that is not using things and not fostering a culture of mindfulness. So the way that I've been, exploring my own world and through different substances is trying to be as mindful as I can. I'm not doing this to escape, and I'm using this to heal myself, to connect with people, to spur myself up to talk about something I'm passionate about. So I think, starting to change our culture is not something that seems really big and daunting, but the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, I think they were founded in 1980, and they they claim to have reduced the amount of drunk driving since they began by half. So, it's not so hard for us to just start culturing mindfulness, reaching out to friends that look like they're struggling. And it's time for us to just take a moment and think, what is the society that we want to be a part of? My experiences with these substances have allowed me to ask these questions. And it's also allowed me to go to be more connected with the people around me and with my own heart and my own self, and be more compassionate, which are all qualities that I think this world needs more of. So with that, thank you.